and welcome to Collegetown Eats, the show where we recreate iconic dishes from college campuses all over the country. I'm JV, a college professor and home cook. I've been to a lot of colleges over the years, and there's always one dish or one restaurant or one something that every student has to have over their time that they're there. And at the same time, it's the one place that alumni make a beeline to whenever they're back on campus for the first time. Thought it'd be fun to see if we could go ahead and recreate some of those dishes, bringing Collegetown to you. For our debut episode, we're recreating the iconic Fat Darrell from Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey. The Fat Darrell began in the 1990s when one college student walked up to one of the grease trucks at Rutgers University and said, "Hey, give me chicken fingers, mozzarella sticks, French fries on a roll." And thus, the Fat Darrell was born. And so, for the very first time, let's give it the old college try.
We're basically going to go completely from scratch here. It's good practice. We'll start with the rolls so they can rise while you work. Fill the bowl of a stand mixer with 400 grams of bread flour and heat 260 grams of milk to around 100 degrees in your microwave. To that, add your yeast and diastatic malt powder, kicking yourself because you're 5 seconds into this and you've already used a container that was too small.
Add 20 grams of olive oil, 10 grams of honey, 8 grams of salt, and that yeasty milk mixture to the bowl. Then let the dough hook go to work. It's going to knead for about 5 minutes in total. A good thing to look for is the dough coming together around the hook rather than sticking to the sides of the bowl. If you know what the window pane test is, you can do that if you want to double check, but we'll cover that another time.
Once things have really come together, dump the dough out onto the counter and start to form a boule, which is a ball of dough that has a lot of surface tension to help with rising. I've seen this technique in a million videos. It's never been explained well, so I'd encourage you to just get your hands on the dough. The best way to learn with this one is by doing it. As your hands spin the dough, its sticky bottom is going to pull its sides under it, creating tension throughout the boule. Plop it back into your bowl, cover it with plastic wrap, and let it rest in a warm place for around an hour, till it's about doubled in size. Quickly making sauce from scratch is one of my favorite cooking hacks because this stuff is way better than the $8 jars of Rouse sauce you bought once when you were trying to be fancy. Start by smashing and peeling 4 cloves of garlic using the bottom of your hand and the side of your knife. You'll then mince the cloves, making sure your hand holding the knife is choked up like it's a baseball bat. Your pointer and your thumb should probably be around the blade itself.
Buying whole tomatoes and then immersion blending them right in the can lets you decide how chunky your sauce is going to be.
Heat 2 tablespoons of olive oil over medium heat, then dump in your minced garlic and stir, waiting about 30 seconds until you smell the garlic before adding 2 hefty teaspoons of dried oregano and up to 2 teaspoons of red pepper flakes. Stir again, then dump in your tomatoes. Mix everything together and add 1 tablespoon of sugar. Check your temperature, you're aiming for a bubbly simmer. Let that cook down for around 20 minutes, stirring occasionally. The flavors will meld and it will thicken. Some people joke it's done when it parts like the Red Sea. Add a teaspoon or so of salt, a few sprinkles at a time, tasting as you go to prevent going overboard. Set your sauce aside to cool. Once you do this once, I guarantee this is going to be the only type of tomato sauce you eat from here on out. Take a block of low-moisture mozzarella cheese, cut it in half again, before cutting it into strips that are a little less than an inch cubed, or roughly the size of a medium-thick French fry. Set those aside and prepare your breading station. 3 bowls. The first seasoned with salt and pepper, the center beaten eggs, and the third Italian seasoned breadcrumbs. I'll go a little slowly here because the steps will basically be the same for the chicken later. Designate one hand for when the stick is dry, and the other for when it's wet with egg wash. First, toss the stick in flour, coating all sides and shaking off any excess. Then do the same with the egg and the same with the breadcrumbs. Doing another round of dipping is essential for mozzarella sticks because you really want them coated well so the cheese doesn't leak too much when frying. I only did 2 rounds, but you could definitely do a 3rd round of coating. I do one at a time first to focus and practice, then you can do a few at a time. On the tester, you'll see that I didn't go back to the flour. That was a mistake. Every single coat should be flour, egg, and breadcrumbs. I'll use this little interlude to make a disclaimer. Deep frying is a little bit scary, and Collegetown Eats is not responsible for anybody burning down their dormitory trying to make mozzarella sticks from scratch in the middle of the night. The store-bought ones will work in a pinch. Throw these into a Ziploc bag and stow in the freezer until they're ready to fry.
French fry time!
I'm going to level with you here. A lot of folks will say that home cooks can produce fries by baking or cornstarch coating. They're all lying to you. Fry is literally in the name, and so we're going to do just that. Start like our mozzarella sticks, cutting a few potatoes into the size and shape of the fry you want. You could peel them and square the sides, but I went a little bit more rustic here. It doesn't really matter. We used 4 Yukon Gold potatoes here, and I really liked the level of crispness we were able to get with a couple of tricks. Go ahead and boil water in a pot, adding a tablespoon of salt and vinegar, which will help the potatoes form a crisp crust after frying later. Add the potatoes and boil for about 10 minutes, then set them aside on paper towels to dry thoroughly. Time to return to the bread, which should be nice and plump in your bowl. Give it a firm, quick punch or two to degas it, then dump it back onto a clean work surface and separate it into 4 equal portions. If anyone ever asks me for one kitchen tool to buy, I say, for a million reasons, a kitchen scale. Use it here to make sure the portions are even. Then we're going to quickly make another set of mini bowls to keep the tension. Years of practice and you too may be able to do 2 at once someday. It's often useful to fold the sides over the way I'm doing here before flipping over and then deploying the hand circle technique thing that, again, I promise is fairly intuitive once you do it. You're then going to press the bowl out into a flat rectangle about the size of that ridiculous iPhone that's too big for any regulation size pocket. If it's still resisting too much, give it some time to relax and grab another one of the balls instead. Then you're going to tightly roll the dough over itself, pinching the roll inward as you go before rolling it as evenly as you can into a longer cylinder in your hands. This has always been one of the harder parts for me. To this day, I still wind up with sub rolls that are even more phallic than a sub is by its very nature. Your final roll should be about 8 inches long. Follow the same pattern with the others, making sure you pinch the seam that your initial tucking created. You shouldn't see it anymore when you're done rolling. Oil a sheet pan, cover them with oiled plastic wrap, and let them rise for about an hour in a warmish place. I used my oven's bread-proof setting for these, and I think that was actually a little too hot. Ideal temp is like 75 degrees. Fried chicken is going to be just like mozzarella sticks, only in this case I did it without breadcrumbs. You could do breadcrumbs if you're going for more cutlet style, but we're going for tendies. A note on that, they do sell chicken tenderloins separately from breasts, but honestly there's not that much difference. So we just have a big pile of boneless, skinless chicken breasts, which can be fairly straightforwardly sliced into 3 tender size cuts per breast. For seasoning the breading, I went fairly classic, with a tablespoon of salt and teaspoons of cayenne, MSG, garlic powder, sweet paprika, and then 2-ish teaspoons of FGBP, freshly ground black pepper. There's a lot of misinformation out there about MSG, but I assure you, it's in all the fast food fried chicken you're eating, so it might as well be in ours. Wet hand, dry hand is again going to be your friend here. And just like the mozz sticks, I'd advise a double dip to get a good crispy exterior. The tenders on the original Fat Darrell were nothing special, so we more or less adhered to that for science, but there'd be all kinds of ways you could experiment to make the chicken a little bit better. Marinating the breast beforehand and using that marinade as a dipping station, dry brining your chicken by putting salt on it and letting it rest in the fridge overnight, stuff like that. Once you start frying chicken at home, there really are a lot of different ways you can take it. After about an hour, the sub rolls should have puffed up nicely. Preheat the oven to 375 degrees and use a razor blade to slash each top, which should help with what we in the biz call oven spraying. You'll want to bake these for 18 to 20 minutes, spinning the trays about halfway through. You can spray the rolls with water or set boiling water in a pan on the bottom rack of the oven if you want. The moistness should help get even more rise. I kept it simple here. Generally speaking, bread baking is kind of a confounding process where there's a million factors that go into it. A lot of cooking is muscle memory, but bread really is about precision and practice. You'll be able to fry everything in the same pot, which should be filled about halfway with vegetable oil, heated to 350 degrees before you start adding your tenders. If you're going to fry at home, I'd recommend getting a thermometer with a clamp like this one. Your tenders should cook to around 165 degrees, which should take about 8 minutes, frying 3 or 4 at a time to not overcrowd the pot. Once your tenders are done, heat the same oil to around 400 and cook your french fries, again doing so in batches to not overcrowd the pot like I am about to do. This time, after about a minute in the oil, dump them into a pot lined with paper towels to get some of the oil out. Wait for them to cool before returning to the fryer for a second round to get them nice and crispy. Last up are the mozzarella sticks, which I saved for the end because I was kind of nervous because they were the only part of the dish I'd never done before. Let the oil come back down to 350 degrees and do a test stick. It should take about 3 minutes, but you can really look for golden brownness here as a visual indicator. If the cheese is starting to leak out, that's probably also a good sign to pull it. Like the chicken, I'm setting the sticks on a wire rack set inside a rimmed baking sheet. This is so any oil still clinging to them will drip onto the pan rather than having the sticks sit in it while they cool. This dish is going to be greasy enough, it doesn't need extra oil. And now, at long last, it's time for assembly. You can also use this recipe as a base to recreate the Fat Moon, Fat Cat, or any of the other 50 options on the Are You Hungry menu. I hear college is a time for experimenting. The original sandwich is layered with tomato sauce first, followed by the chicken fingers, mozzarella sticks, and french fries on top. So we're going to do the same here. Could we have done this way more easily? Yes. Did it take an entire day to make one fat sandwich you can order and eat in about 10 minutes at Rutgers? Yes. Would that be as rewarding as this is, or taste as good? No. Hell no. This is our Fat Darrell, and boy, am I excited to try it.
Hey, all right, so this is the moment of truth. It's been a tremendously long day, but here we are with our version of the Fat Darrell from Rutgers University. It's falling apart a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and give her a slice. No cheese pulled because of the amount of mozzarella sticks, but oh, there we go. Okay. I have to say, I think we really pulled it off. Having taste tested the OG, if you're missing the wonders of New Brunswick, New Jersey, and the State University of New Jersey, here might be your opportunity. So cheers.